The current COVID-19 pandemic has meant that gamers around the world have been given an excuse to do their part and stay home. You know, for the greater good. With all of this extra time on our hands, it's no wonder gaming is seeing a massive spike, with platforms like Twitch, Facebook Gaming, and the now defunct Mixer all reporting record numbers of hours spent on their platforms in the last quarter. No doubt, many of you have taken the opportunity to clear out your game backlog, or perhaps finally dive into a 100+ hour playthrough of The Witcher 3. Sometimes, however, we need a bite-sized gaming experience to either satisfy a moment of gaming ADHD, or to serve as a palate cleanser after a particularly heavy game, like The Last of Us Part 2. Welcome back to Game Gentlemen. In this list, we look at 10 games you can finish in one sitting. For the sake of this list, we're looking at game experiences which you can play through the main storyline through to roll credits in a single session. In some instances, we mention the time taken to complete the game through to 100%, but as these are up to the individual player, it will not be the focus of the list. Additionally, as you will see in many of the games on this list, depending on your skill within a given game, your actual playtime may vary. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay up to date. Number 10. Blair Witch. Based on the found footage horror movie franchise, this 2019 game from Bloober Team sees players take the role of former police officer Ellis Lynch and his companion and all-round good boy Bullet in search for a missing boy in the Black Hills Forest located in Burkittsville, Maryland. The game sees players wandering around, collecting clues, examining artifacts, and solving puzzles as you uncover the mystery of the missing boy, learn more about your protagonist's own backstory, and are haunted by a sense of dread from the presence of the titular witch herself. Blair Witch can be completed in around 5 hours for the main storyline, with completionists only recording an average of 1 additional hour to achieve 100%. Number 9. What Remains of Edith Finch. What Remains of Edith Finch isn't the only walking sim to make it on this list, with the genre often featuring tight narratives uncovered through reading notes, picking up objects, and tracing the steps of those who aren't around. In this respect, Gone Home also deserves a special mention on our list. In What Remains of Edith Finch, players explore the home of the Finch family as they uncover and experience their lives and final moments. Whether it's a family curse, a series of misfortunes, or something more mundane, is for the player to uncover and experience, but it will only take players 2 to 3 hours to do so. What Remains of Edith Finch is that perfect palate cleanser game we mentioned at the start of the video. With beautiful visuals, clever puzzles, and a solid narrative, it's a perfect game between games. Number 8. Resident Evil 3. Resident Evil 3 was heavily criticised when it released earlier this year for its brief runtime, with many commenters lamenting its removal of certain sections of gameplay from the original and its overall feeling of being little more than a DLC for the superb Resident Evil 2 remake. However, as a counterpoint to this argument, Resident Evil 3's short runtime is perfect for some zombie blasting which requires very little thought. Especially when you've taken advantage of the game's store system, where you can unlock various high-powered weapons, perks, and items through earning points by completing in-game challenges. Those who have completed Resident Evil 3 and perhaps unlocked some of those items are also well placed to play the game through in Nightmare or Inferno modes to change up the experience if they are looking for a little bit of extra variety. Resident Evil 3 can be played through comfortably in under 4 hours, with S-rank playthroughs requiring completion times of between 1 hour 45 to 2 hours 30 depending on your difficulty. Number 7. Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes. So I have to admit I paused a little before putting this game on the list. Ground Zeroes feels much like a gameplay demo for the Phantom Pain, but technically speaking, it is its own entity as a standalone prologue story, so it deserves its place on this list. Set after the events of Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, players are tasked with the primary mission of saving 2 hostages from an American black site in Cuba. Players can complete the main story in under 2 hours, with a series of side missions, challenges, and alternate play modes creating a high level of replayability. Number 6. Hotline Miami. The top-down, ultra-violent, 80s-inspired shooter Hotline Miami plays fast and plays hard. This weapon-based gameplay has you move from level to level, clearing out floors of goons, dogs, and the occasional boss fight. The action is fast-paced, and your run can come all to an end in a single gunshot. Thankfully, you can start it all over again with instant reload from the start of the level or the nearest checkpoint. While Hotline Miami's gameplay loop is very fun, and we could listen to its 80s inspired soundtrack on repeat, it's probably a good thing that the main game can be completed in 5 hours. Although, depending on your reflexes, or sometimes luck, your mileage may vary. Additionally, given that each level gives you a score and a grade, chasing that high score will give you many hours of additional gameplay. Number 5. Any Call of Duty campaign. So this one may be cheating a little, but hear me out. If you had a few hours up your sleeve and the latest Call of Duty title, you could rack up a few rounds of multiplayer, adding to the dozens or even hundreds of hours you've already played, or you could take on any of the franchise's single player stories, with the exception of Black Ops 4, which is the only title in the franchise not to include such a mode. Any Call of Duty campaign will take you around 6 hours to complete, and will mostly consist of walk here, shoot this, watch this action set piece, narrative twist, and then finale. Perhaps that's a bit of a simplification of things, but you get the idea. There are some quite memorable campaigns in the Call of Duty franchise, such as Black Ops 2's Karma, or Modern Warfare's All Gillied Up, along with some controversial choices, such as No Russian. Number 4. Little Nightmares. The art style of Little Nightmares is akin to the stop-motion stylings of Tim Burton's creations The Nightmare Before Christmas, Frankenweenie, and The Corpse Bride, or Neil Gaiman's Coraline. Playing as Six, a small girl in a yellow raincoat, and armed with just a lighter, players must navigate a nightmare world full of giant environments as they hide or run from those who would have her for dinner. It's probably a good thing that you can finish Little Nightmares in around 3 to 4 hours, as the tension of being caught throughout the world would either become unbearable or lose its impact over a longer playtime. Number 3. Journey. For a game titled Journey, it's not a very long one, with the game's main story being able to be completed in around 2 hours and completionists taking up to 5 to 100% the game. Tasked with the single purpose of making it to the top of the mountain, Journey manages to tell a beautiful story without saying a word. Players will navigate environmental puzzles, explore vast landscapes, and immerse themselves in a simple yet compelling game. Journey's ever-present multiplayer allows you to stumble across other players in the environment, communicating without talking, and sharing a beautiful experience for a brief moment in time. Number 2. Shadow of the Colossus. Originally released back in 2005 and given a faithful, ground-up remake in 2018, Shadow of the Colossus is widely held as one of the greatest games of the PlayStation's lifespan. In Shadow of the Colossus, you play as young adventurer Wanda, who is in search of a way to resurrect a young woman named Mono. A mysterious voice by the name of Dorman tells him he can help resurrect Mono if he kills the 16 Colossi, and so you set off on your trusty horse Agro and explore beautiful and vast open areas in your quest to bring down these monsters. If you haven't ever played Shadow of the Colossus, it may take you a few extra hours to figure out how to slay the Colossi, as each of them requires a different approach. However, on average, the game's main story can be completed within about 6 hours. Completionists won't be quite so lucky this time, with playtimes almost 4 times that in order to uncover everything the game has to offer. Number 1. Inside. Both of Playdead's titles could have easily made their own spot on this list, but we've decided to narrow it down to one in order to give other developers a chance. So, before we get into why Inside is on the top of our list, a special shout out has to go out to Limbo. The reason that we chose Inside over its predecessor is that it learns and expands on much of what made that game great. In Inside, we play as an unnamed boy exploring dull, dystopian environments. We must run, swim, climb, and use our abilities to solve the game's puzzles, escape vicious dogs, and uncover the game's true ending. And if you haven't played it before, boy, it sure is something. Much like in Limbo, you can die many times as you try and navigate the world and solve the puzzles and obstacles in front of you, and much of the game comes down to trial and error. However, with that said, an average playthrough of the game should take somewhere in the vicinity of 3.5 to 4 hours, and uncovering all of the game's secret to unlock its alternative ending should take you no more than 5. And that's Game Gentleman's list of 10 games you can play through in a single sitting. A shout out goes to Jellyfish King, who suggested a very similar topic to this in our last video. If you have a topic you'd like us to see covered, or if there's a game that you feel we missed on this list, let us know in the comments below. Once again, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and switch on notifications to stay up to date. This has been Game Gentleman, and thanks for watching.